Freilich in Chanukah, this is Gemara Zevachim Daf Tzadik Vav, and we're holding at the very top of Tzadik Vav Amid Aleph, and today's shir for the fifth day of Chanukah has been sponsored by a very close friend of the Daf, as his Chos Elias Neshava, for his mother, Peniina Basra of Daiver, whose yard site is on the fifth day of Chanukah, B'siyata Dishmaya. The incredible Kayach HaTorah of Talmud Torah Derabim should bring Peniina Basra of Daiver an incredible Aliyas Neshama higher and higher in Gan Eden Shalmaila, closer to the Kisei HaKavod, as well as we like all the learning to be an incredible Schos Refuah Shem of Gabriel Simcha and Miriam Ahuva. And finally, Rosh Chodesh is tomorrow's daf. And starting the month of Teves, Mirz Hashem, we'll be learning as Eschos Aliyas Neshama, Aryalei ben Yaakov, which we'll talk more about in the next year. We pick it up on the top of Samach Vav and Aleph. Says the Gemara, we're trying to figure out the case in which we could, yes, remove the forbidden bli ois. We cannot remove the forbidden bli ois. And what exactly is going on? We ended off on the bottom over here. That first we thought it was Kederis Pesach Yishmeru. Rav says we're talking about those are metal ones. That was one case. Therefore, it could be you could do a hagala, you could kasher them. By saying the Gemara said 3 lines at the bottom. Maybe we're talking about trying to figure out the oven. It was the Bryce that said that the oven going into Pesach have to be worried about the chametz tekabliyos. So the second way of learning it says the Gemara b'tanur shel cheres zayisika mibifnim zayisika mibachotz. Frak the Gemara, so why not just fire it up on the inside? We're afraid it's going to break, and therefore anything you're afraid you're going to break, you're not going to kasher. So says the Gemara as we turn over to today's Daf Samach Vav Amid Aleph. What is the reason that Kedeiros, earthenware pots that belong to the base of Mikdash, why are we saying they have to be broken if you're evil to kasher them? Put them back into the kiln and allow it to be kasher that way. As the Tab Rashi articulates, all of Isli Takanta, since there is a Takana Balibon, Hakim the time we Shambaluahi, because it's forbidden Bliois. Beloya Bishal Kapit Kra, the name of Xeris Akasavi, need the Mishkan Ksiv Yishaver, Lefishaya Kavun, Liais Alam, Kiv Shainis, Litzarif Kli Charis. Avol beMikdash, the kash is davka the beis haMikdash. Now Adrino likiv shaynais, put it back in the kiln. Shayotze sarfam b'ambis lamnu, and cause it to become white hot and thereby kasher. Says the Gemara, Amr Avzira, you know why? Lefi she'einais in kiv shaynais b'Yerushalayim. They did not make kilns in Yerushalayim. Why? Because the smoke of the kiln, Misham Kutter, Rashi says, it would blacken the walls of Yerushalayim. Therefore, they were not to make kilns. Therefore, you can't kasher these pots. Amar Abaye says, Abaye Chayoisin Ashpatot Ba'azara. Do we make piles of trash in the Azara? The Rashi says, Mishivrei Kli Chares, from all the broken Kli Chares. So just like you're not allowed to make kilns because we have to be worried about the blackening of the walls, we're also not allowed to be making big piles of garbage. Explains the Gemara on the 5th line, Ishtamitse, Hadetani Shamei, Bekal Nivai. Abaya did not remember that which Shemaya taught in Kal Nivai, that what? Shivrei Kli Cheres Nivloin Bimikaiman. They were absorbed into the ground, into their place. This was one of the incredible nisim that we learned back in the Gemara in Yuma, Daf Chav Aleph, that the broken kelim, the kelim that no longer were able to be used, were swallowed up by the earth. And that's why we don't have to be worried about piles and piles of them. Elahad, Amarav Nachon, Amarav, Aravu, Frax, the Gemara, 3 lines on the white lines. Tanur shall make the Shamatachas Havi Nevad. Tanur shall make the Shavi Cheres, that the ovens were made out of metal Ave. Nevid, Frak the Gemara the Cheres, let it be made out of Cheres. That's taking me with Nimu, because you can fire it from the inside there by kasher it. Explains the Gemara, Kimudik Shtei Alechem, Lechem Aponim, Daf Yasa and Bitanur. Say it's the Shtei Alechem, since Lechem Aponim, the baking of it has to be done in the oven. Havalei Ukdushasan Bitanur. and receives kedusha there. Havle kli shares, kli shares techeres, lo yavdinan. We don't make kli shares out of cheres, and as we turn over to Tzadik Vavam and Beis, the Gemara explains, how far this goes, that we don't make kli cheres. Says the Gemara, Va'afilu Rav Yesi Rav Yehuda, and even Rav Yesi Rav Yehuda like Kamar, even Rav Yesi Rav Yehuda did not say, when he said that we're using actual kli cheres elo de'etz, he didn't mean to be made them out of metal. He meant out of wood, out of the cheres loy, but not to be made out of cheres. Says the Gemara story, Rav Yisrael bar Yehuda v'ragel kamid Rami bar Chama shav keiv azal Rav Sheishes. He left Rav Chama and he went to learn by Rav Sheishes. Yom echad, one day, Pagabei. One day, Rabbi Rachama met Rav Yitzchak. Again, Rav Yitzchak used to learn by Rabbi Rachama. Now he's not anymore. Amar le, Rami says to his old Talmud, al kapta nakton recha, asula liyad. As the statement goes, that which comes from the hand, the fragrance of the king, come from my hand. Says the Gemara, do you think Misham the Azaz Lachalik Hamid Rav Sheishes Avilach Ki Rav Sheishes? Think because you went to learn by Rav Sheishes, you're going to become like Rav Sheishes? Amar Le, you respond, La Misham Achi. This is not the reason, but rather Mar Kibina Milsa Pashale Misvara. Mar, he responded, when you give Shir, you answer Misvara. Ki mashchante masnita, and when you find a Mishnah saying not that way, baruch, you ask a kash from it. Whereas Rav Sheishes fakert, ki beina milsa minei, pashil leim masnita. He asks a kash and he answers it from a Mishnah. The chinam mishkachas masnita. So then, when he subsequently finds a Mishnah, baruch and it's a kasha, masnita he. So then it comes out that it's a stira and Mishnayis, and it's just two different opinions. So Amar Le, remember Acham responds, Bayi minei milsa devshita lacham. Ask me something that can answer for you. Ki masnita, with a Mishnah. So Bayi minei, or it's a Yehuda asked the following. And of course, the whole Akdama, the whole story was to get to this point. Bishol b'mixas kli. What is the status? You cooked it part of a kli, tadrika shtifa, do you have to cleanse it? Do you have to kasher the whole kli? Or maybe just that part of the kli suffices. Amar Le, Rami Rachama responds, Einoi tod midi, Tavi azhaya, doesn't require anything. Why? Because of the sprinkling that is done of the mechatos. And just like over there, we learned, that the entire beged does not need to be cleansed, only the area that had got the mechatas on it, the dam, so too over here. But did we not learn that just like when the dam chatos splatters on part of a beged, we learned back at Daf Sadi Gimel, you do not need to clean the whole garment, and cleaning just the part with the stain is going to be enough. So too in our case. But says the Gemara, but we already learned this. Amalei Mistavra, Kibegis. Rabbi Rachama says it makes sense that in this case is like the one with a stain of dam on it, which is in the Mishnah. That what? Ma begerin tonakibos al makam adam. Av kliyin tanamrika shtiv al makam bishul. So the Gemara wants to prove that just like we find by a beged, you do not need to clean the whole beged. And just like we find that it suffices to launder the part with a stain, so too says the Gemara, l'chayra by a kli, should only do marika and shtifa in the makaim of the bishul. So Amar Lei, Rav Yitzchak bar Yehuda responds, Mi dami, is it comparable? Dam loy mifafeya. Bishul mifafeya. Frank the Gemara, one of the basic tenets in all of kashrus is just because one part of a kli receives a bliya, the whole kli receives a bliya. Why? Because mifafeya, it spreads out, it permeates throughout the whole vessel. And therefore, how can you bring me a raya, Frank the Gemara, from a case of a beged where, of course, the stain stays in one place? V'ayitanya. Furthermore, we learned in a brayso chaymer ba'azami marika. Hazah has a chumra oshtifa over marika oshtifa. Chaymer marika oshtifa mi ba'azaya. Chaymer ba'azah she'azah yishena bechatos. Because hazah applies by a chatos chitano, but chatos abenimis. V'yesh lefnei zrika ma'ashein b'marika oshtifa. And on the flip side, chaymer marika oshtifa she'marika oshtifa ne'heges. Bein kache kache, bein kache kalim. So says the Gemara, how can you learn out one from the other? Each one has a chumrah over the other one. And the second chumrah, bishal b'mixed akli, tan riko shtifa, kol akli, masha inkin bazah. So the Gemara proves two different reasons why we say that it's not the same as the beged who can't bring me a raya, that even though by the beged, it's true, you're only going to have to clean the part that has the stain. But we cannot say the same thing about our case. Amar lei, says Rav Chama, Itanya, Tanya. If we learn like this in a brayso, then it must be correct, and we have to leave it as such. But time amai says, okay, so you brought me a source, and therefore we have to accept the source. But tachlis, what's the reason that when it comes to a kli, the entire kli needs mariko shtifa? Amar Kran, the first one line, Vim Kli Nechoshes by Shelas Vafilu b'mixes Kli, that from the pasuk it's mevuar that even if part of the Kli received a bliya, the entire Kli requires kashering. We continue with, so in as much as we thought we had a source from the case of the Tamchatas, proves the Gemara that it can't be the same. Echa kache kachim, echa kache kalim, the Mishnah said, the keli requires mriko shtifa, and Rav Shimon says only kache kalim do not require such. Tanu Rabbanan says the Gemara on the second line. Chatos says the Torah, chatos iliyala chatos. Kol kache minayin damiloimar. Kodesh kadashimi says the Gemara v'rayo. Yachal sheni barbe said truma. So maybe it's marbe. Even truma, one would have thought the fact that it says kache kachim comes to include not just tam kache kachim, but even truma or other forms of kachim. Tam lemer I saw probably truma divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Shimon Aimer kache kachim tuna mariko shtifa kache kalim ein antuna mariko shtifa. Rav Shimon splits the two. Tachsev kache kachim in kache kalim. Loi. My time the Rav Yehuda. So says the Gemara, okay, what's the makar for now, Rav Yehuda, once we source the Tanakama? If you need to exclude it, that means it starts somewhere. And for the fact that we need the drush of Isa, says the Gemara, according to Rav Yehuda, is going to prove to us that in general it would yes require Mrika Ushtifa even by Kache Kalim. Rav Shimon, that says Rav Shimon, I saw like we thought, therefore he doesn't need another source. But Frakti Gemara, Uchuma Laibai Shtifa Marika, both Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon seemingly were in agreement that Truma does not need Shtifa and Marika. And the question is, why not? Vatanya, but we learned in a Raisa Kedir Shibishal Babasar. Which of course we know you can't use your same keli for milk and meat. And if you cut milk and a meat butter, vice versa, depends if it gives off tam, if it was used within the last 24 hours. Similarly, as well, it's going to be a problem. So what do we see? We see that it does apply to truma, the bliyos, and therefore the din of Mariko Shtiva should yes apply to Shuma. Amar Abaye loy tzricha, says Abaye, no kasha el damar mar bishal mixes kli to Mariko Shtiva kol akli hatruma lo tzarich makom bishal. Meaning, says the Gemara, you're right. Avada, there are bliyos by truma. No one said not. But the chedish that it mifafeya, that it permeates the entire kli, that din will not extend to truma. By truma will always only be that one precise area. Secretary we only need it for that which it says in the brayso. B'mayim says the Torah of v'loy b'yayin. B'mayim v'loy b'mazig. V'afilu yayin v'afilu mazig. But by truma will apply even by yayin or even by diluted wine with water. Rabbi Ula says a third Tarat Amar Mar that the din of Shtifa Mariko does not apply to Truma, only applies to that which we learned, Mariko Shtifa Bitzainin, purging and rinsing with cold water. Ha afilu bechamim by Truma, it's going to work even bechamim. Says the Gemara, Shtifa Yiserta, the additional rinsing with cold water, that is what is going to be necessary, and that's going to be the chilek tin truma and other items. Stop over here. I'll pick it up from the Mishnah. Mirza Hashem.